An Israeli hospital on Monday said preliminary research indicates a fourth dose of the coronavirus vaccine provides only limited defense against the Omicron variant that is raging around the world. Sheba Hospital last month began administering a fourth vaccine to more than 270 medical workers. 154 received a Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine and 120 others received Moderna. All had previously been vaccinated 3 times with the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. The clinical trial found that both groups showed increases in antibodies slightly higher than following the third vaccine last year. But it said the increased antibodies did not prevent the spread of Omicron. Despite increased antibody levels, the fourth vaccine only offers a partial defense against the virus, said Dr. Gili Rigevioche, director of the hospital's infection disease unit. The vaccines, which were more effective against previous variants, offer less protection versus Omicron. The preliminary results raised questions about Israel's decision to offer a second booster shot, and fourth overall, to its over 60 population. The government says over 500,000 people have received the second booster in recent weeks. Dr. Naaman Ash, director of Israel's health ministry, said the research did not mean the fourth vaccine effort was a mistake. It returns the level of antibodies to what it was at the beginning of the third booster. That has great importance, especially among the older population, he told Channel 13 TV. But he said the research would be taken into account as authorities debate whether to expand the additional booster campaign to the broader population. Israel was one of the first countries last year to widely vaccinate its population, and last summer became the first to offer a booster shot. The latest booster campaign for older Israelis also is believed to be the first of its kind in the world. Israel's aggressive vaccination efforts have not been able to stop an Omicron outbreak in recent weeks. The variant has caused record-setting infection levels and sent a growing number of people to the hospital, though the numbers of seriously ill remain below previous waves. It has also forced large numbers of Israelis into quarantine, straining schools and businesses. Omicron is already dominant in many countries and can also infect those who have been vaccinated or had previously been infected by prior versions of the virus. Early studies, however, show it is less likely to cause severe illness than the previous Delta variant. Vaccination and a booster still offer strong protection from serious illness, hospitalization, and death. On Tuesday, the Israeli government said it was shortening the mandatory quarantine period from 7 days to 5 days in order to help keep the economy running. This decision will enable us to continue safeguarding public health on the one hand and to keep the economy going at this time on the other, even though it is difficult, so that we can get through this wave safely, said Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. The incidence of cardiovascular diseases and resultant deaths in India is among the highest in the world. Heart failures are quite common in conditions like severe cardiomyopathy, one of the several cardiovascular diseases. The heart is unable to pump blood normally as this condition changes the integral structure of the heart muscle, leading to cardiac arrest, causing death. Scientists at the Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology have found that novel genetic mutations are responsible for this condition. A team of CCMB scientists, led by K. Thungaraj, have found novel genetic mutations in the beta-myosin heavy chain gene are responsible for causing dilated cardiomyopathy among Indians. This gene is one of the major genes that are found to be causing cardiac diseases globally. However, not many genetic studies were carried out in Indian cardiomyopathy patients. Hence, we sequenced beta-MYH7 gene of 137 dilated cardiomyopathy patients along with 167 ethnically matched healthy controls to identify the mutation, if any, that are associated with dilated cardiomyopathy in Indian patients, K. Thungaraj, senior author of this study and presently director, Center for DNA Fingerprinting and Diagnostics, said. These findings have been published in the Canadian Journal of Cardiology last week. Our study revealed 27 variations, of which 7 mutations were novel, and were detected exclusively in Indian dilated cardiomyopathy patients, he said. We for first time demonstrated how these mutations uniquely disrupt a critical network of non-bonding interactions at the molecular level, and may contribute to the development of disease phenotype, Deepa Selvi Rani, the lead author of this study, said. This study can help in developing gene editing methods that may rescue cardiac contractility of failing hearts among Indians with the novel mutations, Vinay Kumar Nandikori, director of CCMB, said in a statement. The Maharashtra government on Monday issued a letter to the district, civic administrations, and health departments in the state asking them to use oral antiviral drug Molnupiravir for treatment of symptomatic, adult COVID-19 patients with abundant caution and in certain conditions. Dr. Pradeep Vyas, additional chief secretary, in the letter, requested district and civic authorities to use Molnupiravir with abundant caution and in certain conditions and in full advised dose. He said this drug has received emergency use authorization and based on the opinion of some experts it has also been included in treatment protocol circulated on January 6, 2022, in the state subject to certain conditions. Subsequently, certain state governments like Odisha have withdrawn this drug from the market. ICMR has also not recommended its use in the treatment of SARS-CoV-2 infection. Molnupiravir has not been included in the standard treatment protocol released by the Government of India on January 17, 2022, Dr. Vyas said in the letter. Molnupiravir has been shown to reduce hospitalization in a clinical trial and thus has received emergency use authorization, not an FDA approval, the letter stated. Till further clarity is received, you are requested to please use Molnupiravir with abundant caution and in certain conditions, and that also in full advised dose, the senior bureaucrat stated. The letter-cum advisory said the drug may be prescribed for the treatment of COVID-19 in patients who have mild illness not requiring oxygen, one or more risk factors that will cause hospitalization and impending severe disease, in whom there are no other options available, where there are no contraindications to the use of Molnupiravir and in the first 5 days of the illness. However, patients under the age of 18 and pregnant women should not be given this drug, it maintained. Besides district and civic heads and health departments, the letter has been marked to district civil surgeons and health officers. Niati, managing director of Swastika Investmart, expects the securities transaction tax will be removed in the union budget, which will be presented by the finance minister on February 1. STT was introduced in the Union Budget 2004. I believe STT should be removed or at least reduced because initially it was introduced in the place of long-term capital gain, but now, we have both LTCG and STT that is not fair for the Indian investors, he said. Stock market penetration is increasing in India and it is anticipated that the government will take policy measures to ensure that the Indian market becomes more investment-friendly in comparison to other emerging markets where reducing LTCG and STT could be a good step in that direction, he further said and added. The transaction cost in India is too high and LTCG and STT are seen as a sentiment dampener for the market. According to Niati, market wants a budget that should be reformist and pro-growth and must focus on real estate and auto sector. We hope that the government will maintain its fiscal expenditure high with a focus on infrastructure. Though there were several announcements for the infrastructure sector that need to be continued, however, there is a need for some significant measures for the real estate and auto sector to create multiplier effects because these two sectors create jobs and growth in multiple sectors. Besides, the government should increase the tax benefits for housing loans because it is almost at the same level for the last many years. There were many steps taken by the government in the last 1 year to boost the economy, but there was no direct focus to boost consumption. Therefore, the market will like to hear some significant announcements for salaried class, he said. The market will also like more clarity and pace in the government's asset monetization and divestment program. The world is facing many supply-side issues and India can turn some challenges into opportunities, therefore the government should focus on some areas in the upcoming budget. Manohar Agrani. 1 year, 156 crore vaccination. That means approximately more than 42 lakh vaccinations daily. This has been an extraordinary achievement of Team Health India, marking a year of the COVID vaccination program that began on January 16, 2021. We are all aware how several subject experts and intellectuals had expressed many doubts and misgivings. Will we be able to make vaccines available as per the needs of the country? Even if they are made available, does our country possess adequate storage capacities for such huge numbers? It will take too much time to develop such huge capacity. Even if storage is taken care of, do we have the necessary transport arrangements and trained manpower? Does anyone have an idea as to how much time it will take to ready the trained manpower for the vaccination of such a large population? Up until now, the country has not undertaken the vaccination of adult population. So far, under the National Immunization Program, vaccination had been carried out only for children and expectant mothers who constitute a very small percentage of the country's population. How will we address the apprehensions of the people regarding COVID vaccination? How will we address vaccine hesitancy? How will the vaccine be reached safely and on time to far-flung regions? Who will vaccinate them? Amidst this environment of skepticism, Team Health India set out to work on a well-laid-out strategy. We already had on our side years of experience of running our national immunization program. Experience of more than 25 years of administering polio drops to almost about 10 crore infants within a short span of time during Pulse Polio campaign. The capacity to vaccinate more than 35 crore children up to the age of 15 years against measles and rubella. The experience of storing our vaccines in more than 29,000 cold chain points and reaching them to far-flung areas with consistency. Successful implementation of monitoring the storage and distribution of vaccines as per prescribed standards through EVIN. The Ministry of Health Family Welfare, the health departments of the states and UTs, the NGOs working in the health sector, international organizations etc., all of them participated in endless marathon meetings, not only ideating and consulting on every aspect of the vaccination drive, but also taking these to logical conclusions in the form of various strategies and guidelines. It was exactly a year ago from today, before the launch of the world's largest vaccination drive by the Prime Minister, that we set the stage, having finalized the basic guidelines and having completed the necessary training. We were ready with all the necessary preparations much before January 16, 2021, and foremost among these were the operational guidelines for COVID vaccination, identification of necessary manpower for carrying out the vaccination and their training, building systems for reaching the vaccines safely to the vaccination centers and for extra storage capacity, formulating a communication strategy which focused on addressing vaccine hesitancy, eagerness, COVID-appropriate behavior and other similar subjects, setting up of the Cowan platform to collect necessary details in connection with the vaccination in a digitized system etc. A dry run had been carried out in all states/UTs to ensure readiness. There was some technical issue to resolve for which everybody had to be on vigil. It was extremely cold that night. I remember, the entire night, there was nail-biting anxiety, almost akin to what scientists sitting in a command center may experience on the launch of a space shuttle. Words fail me in describing those moments of anxious anticipation or the deep sense of satisfaction on resolving the glitch. Cowan was successfully kick-started on time. This was just the beginning. In the first phase, vaccine availability was limited and expectations were many. Rationalized distribution of the limited number of vaccines would pose a big challenge not only for the center, but even at the level of states and districts. In such circumstances, criticism was inevitable. Team Health India, however, went on to implement this successfully. However, it wasn't easy. To achieve this, there were virtual meetings for hours on end every day with vaccine manufacturers, vaccine transport agencies, storage centers, cold chain points and COVID vaccination center. And the aim was one and only one: use of every drop of the available vaccines optimally as much as possible. Next, imagine how the vaccines would have reached to the far-flung and remotest areas of the country. Where there was no road, cycles were used. In the desert regions, camels came to the rescue, and boats helped cross rivers. In the hills, the vaccine carriers were carried on back. Vaccines were not only reached, they were also administered. People were invited for vaccination with offerings of turmeric rice. For those hesitant to take the vaccination, Hargar Dostak or door-to-door calling was done. In all of this, we did not follow any Western model. This was a purely an Indian model. The process bore the unique stamp of India's ingenuity. What makes the story of 1 year of vaccination unparalleled is that the preparations required were enormous and time too little. We kept learning from the experiences gathered from the field, the positive feedback and suggestions, and we kept working on the program, improving it. Team Health India almost forgot their own personal time, their own needs, their families, their dreams, and many in fact, even lost their dear ones to COVID. But despite that, there was great pride and realization of the good fortune Team Health India had had in serving the nation in a moment of crisis. The writer is Additional Secretary in the Health Ministry. Views expressed are personal. Jindal Pipes has made a counteroffer for Kirloskar Ferrous Industries' bid of about 477 Indian rupees crore to acquire Indian Seamless Metal 2. Without giving details of the offer, sources close to Jindal Pipes said it has placed expression of interest for acquiring majority stake in ISMT, which will not only be better than KIFL, but also be in the best interest of shareholders and lenders. In November, Kirloskar Ferrous Industries said it will acquire 51.25% equity stake in ISMT by investing 477 Indian rupees crore in the preferential shares, and then provide unsecured loan of 194 Indian rupees crore. The deal triggered the mandatory 25% open offer for shares from the public. ISMT was to issue 15.4 crore preference shares to Kirloskar Ferrous Industries at 30.95 Indian rupees per share. As against this, Kirloskar will make an open offer at 31.84 Indian rupees per share. If the open offer is fully subscribed, Kirloskar Ferrous will have to make a payment of 240 Indian rupees crore. However, in December, Jindal Pipes wrote a letter to the lender stating that it is aware of ISMT's debt and obligations to its lenders, and is structuring its proposal to infuse requisite equity in ISMT in the most efficient manner possible. Jindal Pipes' offer will benefit ISMT lenders and creditors, including operational and financial creditors besides the workmen. This apart, existing shareholders of ISMT will also benefit from JPL's offer, which will be better than the proposed transaction with KFIL, it said. The new offer will be tailor-made and optimized for ISMT's existing needs. Since JPL operates in the same space as ISMT, it is well positioned to understand the needs of the business, it added. Avenue Capital-backed Asset Reconstruction Company of India and Edelweiss ARC acquired ISMT loan from bank. Lenders invited bids for their 3,359 Indian rupees crore outstanding loans soon after receiving a 670 Indian rupees crore non-binding offer from Kirloskar Ferrous. Rare ARC had submitted an expression of interest for acquiring the loan, but it did not submit a firm bid. Since lenders failed to receive any firm bids, they accepted a 670 Indian rupees crore offer from Kirloskar. Now, the expression of interest submitted by Jindal Pipes has kicked off a new twist in ISMT sale. Frauds in the banking sector are expected to increase over the next 2 years even as the banks brace themselves to the new challenges thrown up by the COVID-19 and pandemic-induced digital adoption, the latest edition of the Deloitte India Banking Fraud Survey has revealed. As many as 78% of the respondents, which comprised 70 key C-suite stakeholders/senior management responsible for compliance and fraud risk management, audit/finance, asset recovery from varied financial institutions in India, believe that frauds in the banking sector will increase over the next 2 years, the survey findings showed. The key reasons identified for the expected increase in fraud incidents over the next 2 years include large-scale remote working models, an increase in customers using non-branch banking channels, and the limited/ineffective use of forensic analytics tools to identify potential red flags. The survey findings also revealed data theft, cybercrime, third-party induced fraud, bribery and corruption, fake/fraudulent documentation as the main types of frauds that were experienced in the last 2 years. As many as 42% of respondents had been victims of such frauds in recent years. KV Karthik, partner, Financial Advisory, Deloitte India, said, the impact of the pandemic has resulted in institutions across the globe operating in an entirely new environment. An increase in the use of digital channels for transactions by customers, on the one hand, has contributed to the ease and speed of transaction. On the other, with evolving and complex business models and increased use of technology, existing fraud risk management frameworks have been introduced to newer and more complex challenges. This has inadvertently created new vulnerabilities for banks and opportunities for fraudsters. Whilst we adjust to the new normal, we will look to exploit gaps and weaknesses in processes and systems. Reimagining their fraud risk management framework and controls should therefore be a significant priority, he added. The fourth edition of the Deloitte India Banking Fraud Survey attempted to understand banks' mechanisms to tackle fraud risks, the impact of new operational models on fraud risk management, and perspectives on making strategic investments for the future. The survey showed that retail banking was identified as a major contributor to fraud incidents, with 53% of respondents indicating that they had experienced more than 100 fraud incidents, a 29% increase since the previous edition. Similarly, the non-retail segment saw an average of 20 fraud incidents, highlighted by 56% of survey respondents, again, a rise from the previous 22%. Survey respondents indicated that the top 3 outcomes of COVID-19 on their fraud risk management function would be increased dependence on analytical tools for fraud monitoring and detection, the need to create awareness about fraud amongst customers and employees, and a change in the target operating model to enhance capabilities of the remote FRM function. This reflects in the top 3 measures taken by banks to mitigate fraud, with survey respondents highlighting optimizing existing early warning signals and fraud monitoring systems by using AI or ML and integrating external databases, enhancing case management solutions to effectively respond to report fraud incidents, and arranging training/workshops to upskill the staff involved in fraud monitoring function. With a constant uptick in transaction volumes, changing patterns in consumer behavior, and new emerging risks, detecting red flags using traditional rule-based solutions has become obsolete. The pandemic has forced banks to enact significant organizational and operational changes within a short timeframe to avoid service interruption. With myriad changes being deployed at the front end but processes and systems possibly remaining untouched, it begets the question, have all such changes been assessed for their vulnerability to fraud? Said Negam Ojha, partner, Deloitte India. As new fraud risks start to emerge, financial institutions need to remain vigilant to ensure that they continue to effectively mitigate these risks. Exploring the use of technology can enhance the way banks operate to ensure that they stay on top of preventive, detective, and enforcement measures. The relatively static compliance or policy-centric approach to FRM found in many financial institutions may now be outdated. Today, the industry needs to focus on a dynamic, intelligence-driven approach. Only half of the survey respondents indicated that they conduct fraud risk assessments and update their fraud risk register once a year. With fraud risks such as loan frauds, mobile/internet banking frauds, identity/data theft, and phishing being identified as the top 4/biggest concerns facing banks currently, the frequency of fraud risk assessments is severely wanting, the survey showed. Survey respondents have cited limited asset monitoring after disbursement, the economic slowdown, and insufficient due diligence prior to disbursement, as the top 3 factors leading to higher stressed assets. These suggest that banks need to overhaul their due diligence and monitoring framework. Survey respondents indicated that the top 4 challenges faced by banks in performing an in-house forensic audit include technological limitations to read and analyze the borrower's accounting records, lack of data analytics capabilities, lack of requisite skill sets, and lack of a dedicated team. Survey respondents cited areas such as KYC/anti-money laundering, fraud risk assessment, and fraud detection that would benefit from deploying AI or ML technology. Challenges in effectively implementing EWS/EFRMS, including the lack of data integrity due to siloed systems making it difficult to identify risks and inadequate data being captured in the system, were highlighted by survey respondents. The need of the hour is for banks to consider an integrated approach that applies the findings of pre-disbursement due diligence to ongoing monitoring and identifies anomalies and red flags. Advanced technologies such as AI or ML can analyze large amounts of data, filter out false alerts, and identify connections and patterns that are too complex to be picked up by straightforward, rule-based monitoring or the human eye. This will position financial institutions to respond faster/better and cope with future economic crises with resilience, Deloitte has said. Board of Directors or Bookprop Management Service has allotted over 16.82 million units of Brookfield India Real Estate Trust, India's only institutionally managed public commercial real estate vehicle, to third-party investors. The units, which were priced at 294.25 Indian rupees a piece aggregating to 494.98 Indian rupees crore, were allotted on a preferential basis to HDFC Life Insurance Company, Housing Development Finance Corporation and State Bank of India. The issuance of the units follows the approval for allotment by the Board of Brookfield Management Services at its meeting held on December 17, 2021. In December, Brookfield had announced the purchase of 100% stake in Seaview Developers, which owns Candor TechSpace N2 for a total acquisition price of 3,970 Indian rupees crore. It had simultaneously announced that the acquisition will be funded through a combination of preferential issue of 950 Indian rupees crore and a property-level debt issue of 2,910 Indian rupees crore. Candor TechSpace N2 is the largest office park in Noida, Delhi NCR, with a total leasable area of 4.5 MSF. It is 90% operational. The Telangana government is planning to introduce English medium in all the government schools. The government also to regulate the fee being collected in private schools, junior and degree colleges. In order to beef up school infrastructure, the state government has announced a Indian rupee 7,289 crore plan to introduce Our Village, Our School. The state cabinet, which met here on Monday, has decided to bring in a law in the ensuing assembly in this regard. The government has appointed a cabinet subcommittee to discuss the two proposals in detail and chalk out modalities to introduce the two decisions. The subcommittee, which will be headed by Education Minister Subhita Indra Reddy, will have Ministers K. T. Rama Rao, Kapila Ishwar, Talasani Srinivasa Yadav, Niranjan Reddy, Jagdish Reddy, Harish Rao, and Arabali Dayakar Rao as members. Today's PIC/Web and Print. BL Research Bureau. The stock of Mishra Data Negam has been trading broadly in a sideways range for a prolonged period of time since August 2020. The range of trade since then has been 170 to 222 Indian rupee. Within this range, the stock tested a low of 175 Indian rupees in December and has been moving up thereafter. This indicates that the sideways range is intact. As such, the short-term outlook is bullish for the stock to see a rise towards the upper end of the range from here. Intermediate resistances are at 198 Indian rupees and 208 Indian rupees. A break above 208 Indian rupees can trigger a rise to 220 to 222 Indian rupees, the upper end of the range in the coming week. Immediate support is at 180 Indian rupees, and then in the 175 to 170 Indian rupees region. Traders with a short-term perspective can go long at current level. Accumulate longs on dips at 182 Indian rupee. Keep the stop loss at 172 Indian rupee. Trail the stop loss to 193 Indian rupees as soon as the stock moves up to 201 Indian rupees. Move the stop loss further up to 206 Indian rupees as soon as the stock moves up to 211 Indian rupees. Book profits at 216 Indian rupee. The stock will have to see a breakout on either side of 170 to 222 Indian rupees to give a clear cue on the next direction of move.